agree with Alan Greenspan. We ought to just eliminate the debt ceiling. Oh, absolutely. We go.
The ability of almost every working American to access more credit than they should have been able to masked the underlying fact that lower and middle class incomes were not rising.
That's not a tenable strategy. Isn't now the time to eliminate it? Oh, we've been a long time ago to eliminate it.
Let's put aside terrorism. Let's talk only about our own homegrown animals that are patrolling America right now. So it goes down to the simplest thing. Be prepared, be vigilant.
The National Infrastructure and Advisory Council has just yesterday laid a report on the president's desk about serious and impending threats to the power grid by terrorists. You don't have to believe me. I know I'm just a little guy who does a little show called the I Am Liberty Show. Thank you very much for joining me. It's James Walton. It's I Am Liberty. It's the host. It's the owner of the Prepper Broadcasting Network, it's an accomplishment. Okay? It's an accomplishment. And I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to mention it. But more important than all of that, the NIAC lands a report on the desk of the President of the United States about threats to the power grid and infrastructure therein, and basically noted that the American public should be prepared for 6 months without power and the infrastructure that is powered by that. 6 months of preparedness baseline is the recommendation that hit the president's desk today. 6 months. I've been at this thing a long time, and I can tell you I get a little shaky when I think about 6 months without power. That is a hell of a long time. But that is the reality. That is the reality. If you want to look the article up, I may post it on the I Am Liberty Show and Prepper Broadcasting Network. I'll probably put it on both places because it's one of the most important articles of the year in regards to preparedness and prepping in general. It's at the Washington Examiner. And the first two words are start prepping. Oh! You thought I was crazy all those years ago when I told you that one day the prepper is actually going to be the person that they look up to. No way, right? Because when I started back in 2012, when I got on PBN, when I did my first show in March of 2013, the Prepper Broadcasting Network, being a prepper was a laughing stock. It was something you didn't talk about, you couldn't talk about, you shouldn't talk about, you wouldn't talk about. It was the idea that you were a total kook, right? What are you doing? What are you doing? What's all this with the generators and the food and the water? What are you doing? It was all this, right? It was like, you're silly. You're a silly person. The most common rebuttal is always, well, the government will take care of it. Don't worry about it. They'll come in, they'll bring aid, they'll bring food, they'll bring water. You know, people will be civil. Don't worry about it. And here we sit. Some 5 years, almost 6 years later. Almost 6 years later, we sit. You and I, probably many of you have been listening to me from the get-go, because you know what the deal is. Here we sit, and the government, the same government that's supposed to come and save you, is telling the president, hey, I think it's about time we put a little pressure on these Americans to start getting prepared for disaster. You think? Now, I don't want to take the angle of the angry and told you so prepper, right? I don't want to be that guy. I don't think that's a good guy. I don't think that's what preppers need to do. We welcome you, folks. We welcome you with open arms. Come to the I Am Liberty Show website. Go to prepperbroadcastingnetwork.com, and you can listen to 7 preppers a week. Hour-long shows from 7 great minds who are doing this thing in one way or another. That's what you have to understand about the Prepper Broadcasting Network. It's right on time. We are right on time. We're right on time. And even the president knows it now. And I'm tempted, to be honest with you, I'm tempted to send the president or somebody in his circles an email just to let him know that there's a group of preppers out there who are interested in helping the public get what they need, to be prepared for disaster, because that's been my goal since 2013. Because it only took me a year in the prepping world to realize that, okay, you stockpile all the things that you need, so what? What good does that do you if there's a million people around you who are unprepared? No, the goal is not that. The goal is an awakening to the threats that we face in this world. The goal is an awakening to the massive amounts of people who are dependent on enormous infrastructures for life-saving and life-preserving needs, like power, like clean water. I mean, these things go away, people die. Waste management services. These things go away, people die. They die in large groups, both from human impacts and from natural impacts, right? Nobody wants that. Nobody wants that. So how do you stop that? Well, you gather together some people who think the way that you think, and you get on a nightly show and you talk about it. You talk about ways to get prepared, and you talk about ways to fit it into a radical lifestyle. You don't do a doomsday preppers show where you take fringe elements to begin with and then manipulate the footage so they look even more crazy. That doesn't help the public. That hurts the public. That's why I hate that show. That's why that show has turned out to do more damage for the general population of America and maybe the world in regards to preparedness than maybe anything else. But we're coming out of it, just like I knew we would. And this article by the Washington Examiner that lists the risks to the power grid. It talks about the impending threats. It talks about the fact that people don't have enough food, water, power on hand. You know, the modern day triangle of survival, if you're talking about wilderness survival, I've always looked at the triangle of survival as water, fire, shelter, right? Because you know you can go a while without food, you'll be fine. Just got to toughen it up a little bit. I've always looked at the triangle of survival that way, right? When it comes to wilderness. But the modern day triangle of survival has kind of changed in my mind, right? You have a shelter. You should have the tools and the things you need to preserve it, don't get me wrong. But at the same time, you have a shelter. You have a home. So I don't put shelter in there. Really, what comes to mind for me is food, water, power. Food, water, power, I think, is the modern day suburban sort of triangle of disaster preparedness. If you're going to start anywhere, you want to start with those three things. And I don't see a lot of people talking about that. You know, it's usually like food, water, medical, food, water, security. And those things are all important. But if we're going to talk about a baseline of preparedness for the average American, which is what the conversation needs to be, the conversation needs to be about a baseline of preparedness for the average American citizen. Because that's who needs the help right now. That's who needs the help, not just from a strange or rare attempt at destroying the power grid by ISIS or some terrorist group or even a domestic terrorist. No, that's just the base preparedness you need to deal with the snow. That's the base preparedness that you need to deal with the floods, the hurricanes, the tornadoes. You know what I mean? It's just the base. Up at the Prepper Broadcasting Network, I'm developing a base preparedness sort of, I don't know, it's going to be a collection of elements that will give you direction on how to really, really lay the base of preparedness for you and your family. 6 short little posts, probably be 6 recommended items on those posts, and it'll give you a feel of, okay, yeah, this is how I can wrap my head around this thing. Because prepping can be an overwhelming journey, particularly if you go to news websites that are based on like disaster, crime, you know, those sort of news-esque websites. You know, I didn't want Prepper Broadcasting Network to become that because I don't want to be a news outlet. I want to be a prepping outlet. I want to talk about the things that are important to get prepared. We had a great show on Sunday night last week. It was about preparing for family issues. And it was an incredible discussion. with the Sunday host of Next Generation, Ryan Buford, and his son talking about, in a disaster, he's split up with his wife, he's divorced, split time with his son, in a disaster, where would you go? What would you do in a disaster? These are the type of things that are covered over at the Prepper Broadcasting Network. Tonight we've got a great show, Covert Stockpiling with the Gunmetal Armory. And if you're into that kind of thing, Dane, he knows his stuff. I listened to Covert Stockpiling, one, not live last week, but I listened to it last week, and it was a great show. Tremendous ideas. If you really want to get into the stockpiling aspect of this, hiding food, hiding weapons, hiding ammunition, if you want to go down that route, which is part of the deal, if you want it to be. It doesn't have to be. Like I said, food, water, power. That's a good place to start. I didn't say anything about an AR-15s. But this article from the Washington Examiner, man, it's a big deal. It's a big deal for me. It's a big deal for me and preppers everywhere because it's about, so much of what we do is about permission in modern society. So much of it. The people who are looking at what preppers do and it's sort of raising an eyebrow are the same people who are looking for permission to do this, to join this group, to be part of this prepping thing. But they don't want to deal with the moniker. They don't want to deal with the nastiness of the people around them that are going to make fun of them because, you know, I don't really know why. It's really one of those funny backwards things about our society today. The society is so backwards. It's hysterical. I mean, honestly. What kind of a world do you live in where the people who are prepared for disaster are the same people who are going to help you out in a disaster are the people we mock in our society? Survivalists, preppers, those maniacs. Like, those maniacs are the ones who have, those are the people who carry around the IFAKs. You know what I mean? Those are the people who carry around the trauma kits, and if something happens to you or your family, they pop out of the crowd and start putting a tourniquet on the leg of your child before they bleed to death. Those are those crazy people maniacs that everyone talks about. Backwards society. Crippled, degenerated backwards society. I don't pay much attention to the news, but I was watching the Daily today. The Daily News, the local news. And I seen that Kristen Ford, maybe the most taken advantage of woman in recent history. You remember who she was, right, with Kavanaugh? The whole story was that Brett Kavanaugh took advantage of her when he was 18 years old. In some sense, we never really figured out what that meant or what it was, but there was some sort of accusation of sexual harassment when he was 18 years old. And that was supposed to be the story. And the story was supposed to be Brett Kavanaugh's a bad guy. We don't want him in the Supreme Court because he did something crazy when he was 18. But to anybody who could scratch even a little bit beneath the surface, anybody who could blow the dust off of what the Democrat machine was trying to sell there, quickly realized that this Christine Ford was the most exploited woman. She was, and not by Kavanaugh, but by the Democrats. They brought this woman out and tried to sell the biggest bunch of garbage I think I've ever seen. I have not seen a woman taken advantage of the way she was in a very long time in the public eye, without any blowback. You know what I mean? Without any blowback, I haven't seen something like that in a very, very long time. I mean, it was hysterical in some sense. Why? And I don't want to talk about this. I'll be brief and I'll be quick about it. But what you have to understand about the whole thing is what Kavanaugh did had very little to do with that situation. Whether or not he would get in, why he should get in, why he shouldn't get in. The battle in the Supreme Court was about abortion. The battle in the Supreme Court was about the Democrats not wanting a guy in there to disrupt abortion. Now, however you feel about that is irrelevant. Just let me finish. The battle was the Republicans trying to hurry up and get a guy in before the midterm elections. If you're really honest about what was going on, that was what was going on. That was what was going on. It had nothing to do with this woman. They brought her up on the world stage and they mocked her. Right? They had her splayed out in front of the world stage and criticized and all that. And it was the greatest exploitation maybe of a woman in the history of the U.S. government that I've ever seen. And the Democrats applauded it. Hey, we brought her out. We made her expose herself. We made her expose all of the things that happened to her. We made her cry. We made her this. We made her that. We did something good. Hey. Nancy Pelosi called her up, said, listen, Kristen, we're gonna get you justice, okay? We care about you. And I bet her and Nancy talk all the time now, right? Her and Nancy, they're talking all the time now, right? Girl was exploited, man. If Brett Kavanaugh exploited her when he was 18, shame on him. But the Democrats did it in 2018. And they did it with reckless abandon. And it was embarrassing to watch. And I find her now, she's giving out awards for Sports Illustrated. They dug her back up, this woman. They dug her back up and they decided, let's have her give away an inspiration award for Sports Illustrated, whatever Sports Illustrated is anymore. And I just can't help it. It's just the twisted and backwards society that we live in. That's just one clear example, right? Hashtag Me Too, protect the women, equal women's rights, don't objectify women, all that. And then what? We splay this woman out again for the world to see and the world to mock again. Are you kidding? It's not 1997 anymore. This media, Here I am, the owner of a minute little prepper broadcasting network. Right, we're a small little outlet. We have good influence, I think, for what we do and what we are. But I'll tell you this much. My experience with the modern day media is that they're going to do anything they can. They don't care. They're going to do anything. They are soulless. They are heartless. They're going to do anything they can to stay afloat because they're dying. They're dying because there's a bunch of people out there like the Prepper Broadcasting Network who just get up and talk about real life. They get up and talk about real life and they don't depend on crazy sponsors, crazy big giant sponsors that want them to talk about certain things and not talk about other things. There are networks out there all over the internet that are not tied down to the lunacy that the mainstream media is tied into. They've built an empire on something that's disappearing underneath their feet, and they're unwilling to change. They're unwilling to change. So now they've become just like Sports Illustrated, right? Why do you think they pulled this girl out of the hat? Why did they pull this rabbit out of the hat? What do you think? It's kind of simple. It doesn't take a genius to figure it out. How can we get people to pay attention to our stupid awards show? Because nobody cares. Nobody cares about your stupid awards show in the middle of December. Who in their right mind would even give a damn about the Sports Illustrated Awards to begin with, let alone in the middle of December, 2 weeks from Christmas? Less than 2 weeks. Nobody cares. You people are silly. Twisted backwards. They'll do anything to get their name on the top of Yahoo. And here I sit, watching it all, right? Laughing. Really laughing. Because as we build and as we grow, because we're going to be the answer to preparedness and disaster preparedness in this nation for those who want to listen. And I thank my great hosts for giving me the ammunition I need to make this happen. I mean, that's exactly what it is. Without these great hosts, I don't have anything. Without a gunsmith on staff, without brilliant people and mothers and preppers and esteemed hosts who through experience have all this knowledge that they want to bestow upon you. Without them, it's just the I Am Liberty show. So that I'm part and parcel of something much bigger. Listen, we've got more to cover. I got a ride home. I want to talk to you. We're going to take a quick one while I run into this store and do some things, and then we'll get back to you right after this, all right? But the holidays are here. You know what I mean? We made it. We made it to another holiday season. This day is going by quick. Good God, I can't believe what time it is already. I've got a ginger snap here from one of my, or maybe my favorite bakery. It's a little soft. Oh, but it's good. But we made it to Christmas again, okay? It's a time for eating and drinking and loving and shopping and spending and debt and all the things that make America great. And all the things that make America great. Beyond that, it's a time for the worst of the world to sneak out of their little dirty holes and do what happened in France, right? After all the protests and the fires and the right wing going crazy about the tax hike, we see the Muslim filth, the radical Muslim filth appear out of nowhere, right? Their hatred is so thick that they can't make it through a holiday season without a shooting, without a bombing, without in the Western world. They just can't deal with it. It's a Christmas party in San Bernardino. It's a tree market in France. It's just the hatred. Oh, and by the way, it's nothing new. One of my friends, Joe Prim, the host of the Ever Vigilant podcast, creator of some great products over at vigilantwolf.com, longtime listener of the I Am Liberty show, might I add, posted a great little thing up on Instagram where he was doing a little bit of his own listening to the long-standing battle between Christians and Muslims. It is what it is, folks. It might not be nice. It might not sound good for total inclusion in the world and that type of thing, and hashtag this and that. But guess what? Yeah, there's people out there who want to kill you because of what you believe. That's all. And this time of year, we all draw closer to God. And if you want to make a distinction about religions, it's completely up to you. It's your opinion. What's very interesting to me is there's no subset, I don't think, and maybe I'm wrong, but it's a very small one. It's definitely not affecting the entire world the way radical Muslims are, the way radical Islam is. But when we draw closer to our God, Christians, we feel that it's important to spend more time with family and this and that and those things. We draw closer to God this time of year, and it's a warm feeling. And we all get permission to be spiritual again, right? The cynicism fades. The radical atheists shut their mouths and go about shopping. And we get to be spiritual again. We get to say, I wonder what it's like if I open this Bible up and read a few verses. I wonder if I'll get castigated at work. Like always. We draw closer to God and things get better. And I think that's the hallmark of Christianity, right? Well, for some segment of this Islamic religion, this radical Islamic sect, call them Wahhabists, call them whatever you want, they draw closer to God and they kill people. They draw closer to God, and rather than smile when they see others drawing closer to their God the way a Christian would on someone who is, of the Jewish faith or even of the Muslim faith, they draw closer to their God and they have to kill. They have to kill for him. That's not a religion, by the way. It's not. It's something that has to be eliminated off the face of the earth, in my opinion. It's got to go. It has got to go. But I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. There's a lot of rabbit holes to go down, right? A lot of rabbit holes to go down. How about EVD-68? How about the paralyzing illness that is affecting children all over the nation? Paralyzing kids within hours, killing people's kids. It's called AMF, if you want to look into it, but it's based off the EVD-68 virus, which has been around for quite some time, but this particular strain is what caused the paralysis of the child in the first known outbreak in Colorado. Yes, in Colorado. And I can't, I don't want to make mean nasty links to illegal immigration. But last night on my show, I talked about, I'm reading a book called The Jamestown Project, and there's a lot in there about disease and what happened when early explorers came to North America. And the popular history is that only the Native Americans got sick. But the truth is that when winter came, everybody got sick. There were diseases that were contracted by the Europeans from the Native Americans, right? Naturally, we're going to a new land, folks. That's how this works. It's a two-sided coin. Now, what happens when thousands or millions of travelers come from rotting hellhole third world nations with dictatorial leaderships that could care less about the safety and well-being of their people, that could care less about the general health of their people? What do you think happens when a population of people from that background, it's not their fault that they're from that background, by the way, but what happens when those people break the law, cross the border, and then just send their kids to your kids' school? Listen, I'm not a doctor, so I can't say that EVD 68, and the mutation or whatever's happened with it to turn it into this AMF disease, this paralyzing polio-like disease that's killing some kids, paralyzing others, maybe the most terrifying thing a parent could go through. I can't say that it's happening directly because of illegal immigration, but when I look at history, and I am a student of some points in history, not all history, because not all history fascinates me, and I don't do things that don't fascinate me very often because I don't have time. When I look at that, when I look at places like Texas and Colorado who have the most cases, I mean, there's just evidence there. There's some evidence there that makes me wonder, where did this disease magically come from? You remember the trains of illegal immigrants coming in under Barack Obama. Well, that's when it came to be, okay? That's when it came to be. When we had all these people piling over the border and no one did anything about it. Yep, that's when it happened. All right, go look at the first recorded case. And now there are parents saying that the CDC are also, they're underreporting the numbers. They're underreporting the numbers, and the CDC claims that, well, we don't really know how to look at the disease. We don't really know how to diagnose it. We need more disease detectives in the field, and we're going to put more on this thing. We're going to hurry up and we're going to do it, but we just haven't been able to keep up with it. And then you fall out of your chair. And then you fall out of your chair because you realize, oh God. So border security is broke. And any diseases that are coming in over the border, and there are, people are being diagnosed with tuberculosis in that sort of terrifying situation. Then you realize, okay, the border's broke and the CDC's broke. So what they're bringing over, they don't even know how to track it. They don't know where it come from. They don't know if there is a correlation or not a correlation. All they know is, and this is the worst part of it all, folks, because you didn't get to vote on it. I didn't get to vote on it. No one got to vote on who comes to this nation. No one gets to vote on that. But they've decided to sacrifice your children. They've decided to sacrifice you and your loved ones. They've decided that for the greater good of the world, little Johnny, he can get a paralyzing disease that they don't know how to fix, and they don't know what it's called, and they don't know how to diagnose it, they don't know how to find it, they don't know how to isolate it. But listen, little Johnny, while he's laying up in the bed and he cannot move, and his life has made an incredible turn for the worse, even though he lives in America, even though he was born in America, even though his parents spent generations in the nation making it better, working hard, paying taxes, maybe his great-grandfather died in a pool of blood in Europe to defend the world against a real threat. Hey, sorry, Johnny. Tough break, bruh. Tough break, brother. We're doing this for the greater good. There's people in third world nations that are bringing, could potentially be bringing diseases, drugs, crime, we know for a fact, up north. And even though your parents didn't get to vote on whether or not they wanted more of these people from third world nations who are illiterate in their own language, let alone in English, nobody gets to vote. These are depressing things that drive people to the brink, that drive people to riot 5 weeks in a row in a place like France. Listen, there is a direct correlation, and I can make this statement because I've seen it. There is a direct correlation between civil unrest and the stress on the taxpayer. How much money do we have to pay to take care of the world? How much money do we have to pay to watch our kids get murdered, get killed by opium addictions, get killed by unknown diseases from unknown sources? We need an answer for this immigration thing. It's not an easy one. Nobody wants to say what needs to be done, but we know it needs to be done. It's just got to go back to proper screen. Well, I don't want to go down the path. It's the holidays, all right? There's a lot to worry about. There's a lot to prepare for. Listen, check out the Prepper Broadcasting Network. Listen to the wonderful hosts. Go out, get the new book, The Christmas Hook. Read it to your family. If you're prepared, you can be ready for most anything. That's all there is to it. Nothing is going to change. There's no wall going up. It's not happening. There's no wall going up to protect us. The government is about as weak as it ever can get. And what we have to focus on is being prepared for the regional disasters that affect us, being prepared for the natural disasters that affect us, being prepared for the civil unrest that is undoubtedly coming. Folks, this is not conspiracy. This is not conspiracy. There are haves and there are have-nots. There are people who believe that mean and nasty white people are the source of all the problems of the world, just the way that Nazis did about the Jews. There are people out there who believe that one group is ruining it for the rest of the groups. There are people out there who are tired of paying taxes. There are people out there who are burdened to death by debt, and they look at another man and they know that the reason why is because they have to pay for that man. There's a million belief systems set up, and they all end in one way: pointing the finger at someone else. And today we're pointing fingers, but I assure you it won't end in pointing fingers unless we build community like I've been talking about for the last 5-6 years. And unfortunately, I don't see that happening. So get prepared. That's all you can do. You can make your little neighborhood the best and the most prepared thing that you can. And hopefully, we find a leadership who can bring us together again. Or, it all falls down, man.